So how do we spot those big 20, 30, 40x gains before they happen? Because what most people will do is something will come along across their radar when the coin or the token has done something like UFO is currently doing now, where it's at all-time highs pretty much, and it's looking good, and they're like, okay, I guess this has got some momentum, so I'll get in. I know I should buy the pullback, but how do I know when that's going to start? And but what we really want is we want to catch it kind of down in these areas, down in these areas, down in these areas. How do we do that? And so what I've done over the last 3.5 hours is probably one of the most valuable exercises I've ever done in the crypto space. And that is I've taken everything chunk by chunk from the very beginning. What has happened? What has caused each one of these price movements? What's caused each one of these corrections? And what can we learn and how can we extrapolate that out into the future? Now, I'm not going to bore you and talk about every single of these notes I've taken here, and how I've done it all. I will go over some of the basics. But at the bottom, I've prepared a summary and the key takeaways that can be projected out into the future. I'll also be talking about what I am waiting for next with UFO and why. But this isn't a video talking about, oh, UFO is a good pick, like, because it's gone up and, because a lot of other people will just do that. That's not really very useful whatsoever. And so I'm not going to be going down that route. Instead, I'd much prefer to build the skill set of how do we identify something? How do we identify value? But more importantly, how do we identify those speculation based influences on price? How is a community built? All these other things. And we'll discuss these and a hell of a lot more things in this video. So I really, really do hope that you enjoy. If you do, I'd appreciate you smashing the like button. And obviously, none of this is financial advice. This is all just my opinion, my approach. I'm just sharing my journey. So I hope that you do enjoy it. So first and foremost, if you don't know what UFO gaming is, UFO is a decentralized metaverse social gaming platform with an ever-expanding ecosystem of games. So again, comes with a lot of the benefits of a lot of the other gaming cryptos. They've got a really cool concept of having kind of one planet per one game. And so you can kind of move from planet to planet and, have these different things and characters and in-game NFTs. And they've also got this grand vision for, being kings of the metaverse as do so many other people. But yeah, so what we've got here is I'm not going to take you through all these notes and bore your socks off, but I've broken everything down into chunks. And why have I done this? Well, I touched on this before, but by breaking it down into chunks, I can see what is causing each of the major parabolic moves. What was this all about? Well, this was the initial, IDO, the classic kind of initial rise up and then the dump back down. Why that was, well, I just said why that was, but why all of these future ones happened the way they did. Why did it go from going up slowly here and then suddenly bolt up and then suddenly bolt up again? Why did it start correcting here? Why did it start correcting so deeply? These are all the things I wanted to really understand. And whilst I had a basic idea of the fundamentals, I understand investing and stuff like that on a pretty decent level, I think. But in terms of applying the specifics, the technicalities of crypto, those are the areas where I think I need the most improvement. And so that's where I'm spending most of my time learning. And so I can tell you right now that this was probably the most valuable experience I've ever done in terms of crypto, and it is a little bit time consuming. But the value is just absolutely off the scale because if you can consistently understand how the past has affected things in the past, then in the future, it's going to be a lot easier to identify what are the major things that you're going to be looking out for. And so first and foremost, what is next for UFO? Well, I'm just waiting for a retrace and I'm looking for some sort of catalyst, and I'll go into detail about catalysts in a minute and the types of catalysts, but I'll be waiting for essentially a news event of some sort of a specific type to get me in after a retrace to continuously buy. And if it keeps going down and there's more and more news announcements that meet my rules, then I'll just buy every single time up to the maximum amount that I'm willing to put into UFO. These aren't things that I'm risking the farm on, betting the farm on, whatever that expression is. I am very, very cautious with my risk. I don't, I prefer to preserve my capital and make a smaller gain than I would to just shoot for the moon. But that doesn't mean we can't get the best of both worlds and hedge our risk whilst also doing some really, really good games. So, so what can we learn from me basically slaving away for the last 3.5 hours writing all of this out? Well, the first thing, and some of these are going to seem a little bit obvious to those of you who are a little bit more advanced, especially these initial few, but I wanted to include all of them because it puts everything into context. The first thing is the IDO, so the initial DEX offering pump and dump. Get in on the dump and avoid the initial pump, especially as the volatility is so high at this early stage. So essentially, when a coin is first released onto exchanges, it will often have this pattern where it immediately pumps and then it dumps back down to the all-time lows of, at the time or near there, and then it will continue going up if the intrinsic value of the project is there, which it not always is. The amount of failed projects or rubbish projects that kind of pump, they take all their profits here and then it just dies for oblivion. So that's the first thing. The second thing is a project's value is not proportionate to whether it's pumping or whether it's correcting. This was a really, really big one, actually, because it's one thing to understand this intellectually and to look at it and be like, okay, cool, I understand that, just because it's gone down 50% doesn't mean the project is really bad. But really internalizing it and understanding on a deeper level is one of the benefits that has come to me by going through this process. And so, for example, if we look at UFO, if we're zoomed in on the chart a little bit, because at this point in time, this would have been very high up for us. But, as we continue going up, haven't had any really major pullbacks. And then what's happened here? We have to actually zoom out to see the whole context of this move. And just from memory, I believe it was a 68% dip from this high over here to this low down here. Now, to the untrained eye, even to an experienced investor, a 68% dip is absolutely massive, and especially someone who isn't acclimatized to the crypto space. But the initial innate human reaction is, oh, this project sucks. There must be something that has happened that has caused this to happen. One of the things that I have learned from going through this process alone has been that's not necessarily the case. In fact, price is actually a really bad determiner of value. And whilst, again, I understand the fundamentals of investing, if you look at things like stocks and, index funds and stuff like this, these are all kind of basic concepts, but the difference is you rarely see 68% gains, 68% dips in those kind of larger asset groups. You just don't see that kind of volatility. And so sometimes it can be easy to forget some of those fundamental principles. So I thought that was really, really powerful. Next thing, the smaller the market cap, the more volatile the swings are to be. Now, again, this shouldn't be used as a measure of value. When the market cap is much smaller, it's a lot more susceptible to big swings up and down as, larger positions create more of an impact in the market. However, this is not an accurate measure of value whatsoever. Next thing, pumps are followed by dumps and dumps are followed by pumps. Very, very simple. It pumps, it retraces, or pumps and pulls back, etc. And the cycle continues. Next thing is it's impossible to call the top. So regular profit taking is a must. I see this all the time. People will get in, let's say they get in here, they'll see this big upswing up here, they'll be holding it, they won't take any profits, and then they'll slowly watch it dip in the hopes that it goes up, and they'll end up being in a negative to their initial position over here. And they'll just be like, well, what the hell happened? And they'll end up closing out of fear, sometimes closing in a complete loss altogether. Whereas if you've just taken 10 every 10% or something, you've just taken that extra 10% off and left your initial investment in. By the time you get up here, you've basically doubled your money, or I'm just eyeballing it here, but you've basically, made it a pretty significant amount. So even when it does come back down, you're still basically at break even. Even if it comes down here, you've still taken some off the table. You're no longer at a loss. You're at a loss, yes, but much less because of all the profits you took off here. And it also allows you to re-roll, if you believe in the projects, those profits back in at these lower price points. And so that is the ultimate thing, and it's kind of unrelated to this video, and I will make a video in a little bit more depth about this in the future. Next thing is assuming there's intrinsic value, and I've got other videos on this, and I will make more videos on this, but I'm not going to cover this now. But assuming there's intrinsic value, meaning the project has all of the hallmarks of having genuine value. In the context of gaming projects, that's going to be good gameplay, good community, all these types of things. If it has that, then all we're looking for are the catalysts to predict those pumps, because if we get those catalysts, those are going to be the things that push price into those higher regions. And so let's break them down. So these aren't all of them, but these are some of the main ones that I got from just going over this timeline. The first thing is the token gets listed on an exchange. Why is this good? Because if a token gets listed on an exchange, it's going to be more accessible to all the users of that exchange, and therefore more accessibility combined with the intrinsic value, which is a must for all of these. That's a recipe for absolute success. And just a follow-up point from that, the bigger the exchange, the bigger the pump. The next thing is collaborations with companies / other crypto projects. And these can be graded at the most basic level by the market cap of the company or project that is being collaborated with. For example, UFO currently has a $1.3 billion market cap. If it announces that it's doing a collaboration with another company or another project that has a $1 million market cap, that's really not going to influence the price all that much. However, if they announce that they are going to be doing a collaboration with another, 1.5-ish billion-dollar market cap project that has huge potential and is really showing to be the leader in whatever that particular project is trying to achieve, and it really works well with UFO Gaming's vision, then that's going to create a much bigger pump, obviously. So the next thing is collaborations with influencers. Now, this is really hit and miss, because in my opinion, it's less significant than the previous two on most occasions. Now, this is often because the type of influencer is important. Not in all cases. Obviously, there's a kind of saturation point of fame where it just kind of appeals to everybody. But if an influencer who talks about makeup 3 times a week and then suddenly starts plugging a specific crypto coin, you're going to get a lot of dumb money coming in, or you're just going to get a lot of people just ignoring it completely. And so it's just going to have a very weird effect on the coin or the token. Whereas if you've got an influencer who has a very high quality audience, maybe someone who's just in general investing or in trading or anything like that, when they start promoting something, it's going to have a much more substantial impact on the coin, because it's going to cause some people who really understand what's going on to get involved and hopefully get involved in the project. Because if you're looking at things long term, which you should be to a certain extent, then getting dumb money coming into the market that's just going to FOMO in and get out too soon, that's not helpful for the long term. And ultimately, I'm basing most of my decisions off the long term, but I'm optimizing my gains for the short term as well as that. Okay, and I'll explain that again in more depth in another video. Next thing, giveaways and prize pots. So in the context of gaming, I saw time and time again, UFO Gaming, I think they did about 6 or 7 giveaways over the last 4 months or whatever since they've been created. And they'll do it they'll combine with gaming influencers, and again, that's just emphasizing the previous point. In the context of gaming influencers are going to have a lot more clout, a lot more benefits than a makeup influencer. No offense if you are doing makeup, by the way. But yeah, and so prize pots, if they put a 50k or a 10k prize pot on the table for a competition, gets lots of people involved in a project, it builds awareness, it brings more people to the project, builds that community, and obviously community is a huge determiner of the intrinsic value. The next thing is liquidity. So just for those of you who do not know, I will make another video on this, but when we have a liquidity provider, all that is doing is, instead of us needing a equal and opposite buyer when we want to sell, so they can buy off of our sell positions, instead of that, which would basically limit where you can buy and where you can sell, it basically means that you can buy and sell pretty much anywhere you want up to a certain point. Obviously, this becomes more and more restrictive the lower the market cap, because the liquidity pools will be smaller and smaller. And so if you have got a larger position, which for the vast majority of you wouldn't have a ridiculous, substantial, like a large percentage holding of the overall token, then that's going to be very important that we do have that liquidity. And so liquidity locking is basically when you so let me just kind of move back a little bit. So when you have a liquidity provider, you can buy and sell wherever you want. And often what will happen with the classic rug pull scenario, where you see these huge pumps and then it just goes down to zero, like with Squid Game, where everyone gets trapped and they can't even liquidate any of their profits. That is often because the liquidity hasn't been locked, meaning normally the founders or some very large holders in the project, they will pull out and they will start selling and liquidating all of their large portions of the market. It just causes price to plummet and no one has the chance to sell whatsoever. Whereas if you lock the liquidity, then what that's going to do is it's going to be, okay, cool, for the next X amount of time, there is going to be set in stone a liquidity provider producing this amount. And so this basically prevents that scenario where you're just going to have the rug pulled. In other words, this massively reduces the risk, especially for these lower cap coins and stuff like this. So that's very important. Next thing is burning updates. Again, opening up the potential to be a deflationary asset. In other words, you can have a reducing supply over time, which is fantastic, because if the intrinsic value even just stays the complete same, it basically says that the price is still going to go up over time, which is just another positive. Next thing is new gameplay releases. So the closer that we can get to a full user gameplay video, the better and the bigger the pump. There is a huge difference between a picture of an animated character in a little animated scene versus a moving, you can see someone genuinely moving and interacting as if it's an actual video game and going through that whole process. Those are two different ends of the spectrum. And the closer you can get to a full user gameplay where it's walking through as if it would be when someone's actually playing it, the better. It makes the biggest difference because it's very easy to put together a load of animated things. However, it is very, very difficult to put together a genuine game that is interactive where someone can interact with the environment. And so the closer you can get to that, the bigger the pump. And UFO Gaming was no different when they released God, I'm going to get the name wrong now, which is really embarrassing considering I've just spent the last few hours something Galactica. Is it Super Galactica? Let me just quickly find that. Let me just type it in here. Super, no, this one. Yeah, Super Galactica. There we go. So when they released that, the gameplay, I think it was fairly early on, that caused a huge pump in price. Next thing is staking opportunities and benefits. Anything that benefits the users, the investors, and especially monetary benefits are just going to be a huge plus. Next thing, benefits of the ecosystem for the users and the investors. Kind of a follow on from the previous point, but to be specific, this seems to have more of an impact when the token coin market cap is fairly low, but it is still significant. What I mean is when you have a lower market cap coin or token, what you're going to have is you're going to have individual positions or certain amounts of money that are much more likely not money, what am I talking about? Individual pieces of news that are going to have a much more significant impact on the price. However, as that market cap increases, it takes more intense updates and announcements to cause bigger and bigger moves in price. And if we want those larger, kind of bigger potential gains, then we are going to have to understand how that all works and really kind of take it into consideration, the stage and the market cap of a coin when looking at this as a potential factor and as a potential catalyst to get involved with something. And anything that goes into depth about new functionality in a game or a technology with clear outline benefits, ideally monetary to the player or the investor, are fantastic. And the final point here is also we don't just want everything in the game to be money centric. Otherwise, the game will suck and be filled with money grabbers. What do I mean by this? Well, one of the things I really liked about UFO Gaming is they would constantly release updates about the incentives and the punishments that would come from players trying to abuse the system. Because one of the negatives of having this metaverse opportunity and lots of these different things coming in and these money-making opportunities is you're going to get people who don't play the game for fun. They play it and they try to kind of hack and hack the system so that they can just make loads of money. And that doesn't make it very fun for other players. And UFO Gaming, they're not the only game company that does this, but they have implemented measures to reward high activity, good, metrics associated with hard working in the game and actually user experience, and they punish behavior that is associated with, in their case, overbreeding, which is where you breed two characters to create a stronger NFT, and then you can obviously sell those NFTs and whatnot. So it basically punishes the behaviors that are money centric and rewards those that are user experience positive, which is fantastic, because if we don't have a good user experience, everything will crumble and we are just going to be 100% based on speculation. Whereas if we have a good user experience, that is the best foundation for any kind of investment, in my opinion. And instead, we want incentives for gameplay where hard work and skill are rewarded and activities that go against this are punished. I may have slightly overcomplicated the way that I put this together, but this is a nice and simple summary of what I've just spent the last minute or so explaining. But yeah, this is so valuable. I really hope that you guys see the value of this. Now, of course, going through this whole process took me ages. It was very laborious, but I also kind of started enjoying it about halfway through, because it just, the lessons that you learn are going to be absolutely crazy. Now, I'm also in the process of creating something that is going to create a huge shortcut for this. So I really, really hope that you are looking forward to that. If you have enjoyed this, I would really appreciate you leaving a like on the video and sharing it if possible, doing anything to help support the channel. I'm also going to be creating a community this week so that we can all join, share ideas. I'll be sharing exactly what I'm looking at and all of these sorts of things. So if you're interested in that, then let me know in the comment section below. If you're excited, drop a like, all of that fun sort of YouTuber stuff. And until next time, guys, take it easy, and I'll see you very, very soon.